Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at MikeMmedia and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and More, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network, and of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast to like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Quarantine Files here on the Good Brothers on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado, coming to you from the Bowling Yard, and from the Firefly Funhouse is the good brother himself, Alex Mercado.
How's it going?
Everything appears to be everything, good brother, and on this episode of the Quarantine Files, we celebrate the fact that Wrestlemania has come and gone. It was an event too big for just one night. So, good brother, what did you have in store for us?
So for today, for our list to keep it going, since it is the Monday after WrestleMania, we're going to do our top 5 favorite wrestlers. Now, this doesn't mean who we think is the best wrestler. It doesn't think the most entertaining. It is just our personal list of our 5 more personal, influential wrestlers that we enjoyed growing up.
Is it always kind of amazing when you start thinking about how many of these men and women actually did hit pop culture and the mainstream over the last 50 years of the business?
Well, I mean, you have to think about it like this, where I think every young man in the 90s was a wrestling fan, and I think it goes to show you the drop it definitely had in generation change. It's not as a hardcore viewing, and me being someone that my main sport was something that it was a choreographed, skill-based routine, I still appreciate a lot of wrestling and still enjoy a lot of it, honestly.
And it does gangbuster numbers every single time, even though this past WrestleMania, obviously recorded inside the Performance Center, so there was no audience around. But normally we're talking about an event that still gets 80 to 90,000 people in a stadium.
Yeah, it was it was trending worldwide yesterday, and we have people like Gronk on it, Ronda Rousey, the Gypsy King himself. So I think it still has a big place in pop culture. It's definitely changed its style, and I think it going to more of a PG audience definitely killed a little bit of its audience for a few years. But I think with AEW and now wrestling kind of making a move forward in more sports aspect, I think we're going to get a little more audience coming forward.
Absolutely, good brother. So let us get into it then. It is time here on the Quarantine Files, the home of the Good Brothers, the styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a guns, the Good Brothers on the Mercado Airwaves Network. It's time to give you our top 5 wrestlers of all time. On the Quarantine Files, good brother, we are going to stay with a good thing. And I'm going to stay with starting off these lovely lists. And on number 5, I give to you my number 5 top 5 wrestler of all time, CM Punk. Now, this one, again, we talked about it being personal. CM Punk really hit the zeitgeist when I was in college. Everybody remembers the pipe bomb. And on top of it, I was there at Money in the Bank, July 17th in 2011 here in the great city of Chicago. One of the biggest events in all of sports entertainment, when CM Punk won the title and walked out of the WWE. And in kayfabe, his contract was coming to an end a little while before that show. One of those rare moments where we started in the new era of kayfabe being broken truly 100%, and we saw completely behind the scenes. And a lot of that has to deal with CM Punk and his influence in the business. That's why he's number 5 on my list.
CM Punk almost made my list. He definitely, I think I got into wrestling almost in like 2012, 13, right when I got to college, so it would be 2 years later. My number 5 pick, I think it's kind of funny because I kind of set my list off of the genre style you're doing your list at until we get to the number 1 and 2. So my guy's very similar, but why Punk didn't make my list is I was already at the downfall of Punk. I like Punk, and he's a hometown kid, and I appreciate everything he did. But I think we're going to get that with you and me. The 2-year difference does make a big difference in who our favorite wrestlers are in these genres.
What do you think is CM Punk's most influential moment? Is it the Colt Cabana podcast? Is it the pipe bomb? What do you think is CM Punk's lasting impact in professional wrestling?
It's got to be two. It's either got to be the pipe bomb or his reaction to Chicago being one of the loudest reactions of all time, I would say.
So at number 5, I have CM Punk. Good brother, who do you have to bring to the table at number 5?
So for my number 5, I had stopped watching wrestling for a few years, kind of after the Cena phase, like when he was on the downfall of, the Fruity Pebbles and the Rock stuff right after that. And for me, what brought me really back to it was WrestleMania 30 was the Daniel Bryan storyline. So my number 5 is Daniel Bryan. Very similar to your CM Punk pick, but with me, the 2 years made a difference of you follow his whole career, you see him fighting the Authority, literally the Authority, and Triple H is one of my favorites too. And Stephanie McMahon is one of the best heels of all time, and he has to fight that in a year-and-a-half story played through, and he's fighting Orton and Cena and Batista, and Sheamus is in there, and he's got Kane by his side at times, and then not at his side. It's such a good story leading all the way up to starting WrestleMania 30 and then ending WrestleMania 30 on the Yes Movement. It was riveting television at the time. Every Monday you couldn't wait to see what they were going to do with him. The moment in the ring when him and CM Punk are fighting Triple H and HBK, basically. I remember all that so vividly. So Daniel Bryan definitely was the reason I got back into wrestling, and that's why he's my number 5.
It's a great pick, and Daniel Bryan, what he did culturally when we're talking about the Yes Movement, it being in stadiums and being in sports arenas and being part of pop culture, and it's even in a credit card commercial nowadays, the reality television, and he also really has just kind of been himself. There's never been a person that says that he's phony or that he's fake. It's what you get is what you get, and obviously if we're talking about in the ring kayfabe, WrestleMania 30, that match with Triple H, and then that main event against Batista at Orton. You're talking about 4 Hall of Famers and 1 current Hall of Famer, 3 future Hall of Famers. It was just a great recipe. Stephanie McMahon, her entire role in this, Occupy Raw was huge. I think Daniel Bryan's a great list. If he's not number 6, he would have been number 5. Like, he is definitely one of those guys. I can never argue if he's a top tier forever moving forward. So at number 5, good brother, I have CM Punk, and you have
Daniel Bryan.
Now at number 4, good brother, I'm going down to the south. I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to our friend Ted Turner. My number 4 top wrestler of all time is the man, the icon, Sting. He was my John Cena as a kid. Legitimately, the surfer Sting. He was cool. He was everything the Ultimate Warrior was to the kids in the 80s. And then when we got in 1997, Hulk Hogan versus Crow Sting, to me, was one of the most epic moments. And it's funny because looking back now, you can really see how strong nostalgia really is, because that match is not good, and they completely botched everything. But at that time, all I remember is Sting won the big gold belt over Hulk Hogan. Wolfpack Sting, amazing. And even his run in WWE, if it wasn't for a freaky injury at a later age in his life, he would have been WWE champion over Seth Rollins. And there's no wrestler that has a greater legendary dream match that will never happen than Sting, than another guy I have in my list. Spoiler alert, Sting, number 4 for me.
Yeah, I like Sting. The problem with Sting was always, I felt like beside the 1 year of Crow Sting, when he got the title against NWO, everything else from his beginnings to his endings, even as the Crow, were very boring to me. So it never really stuck with me. I'll give him this. That one storyline is one of the best storylines ever, and I enjoyed it so much. But beside that, I don't enjoy a lot of what Sting did compared to my number 4, which I can say the exact same things you just said about mine.
Well, that in mind, who do you have at number 4, good brother?
Now, I think I have the better WCW guy, and the guy that, with another person on your list, can have a dream match that we've all wanted. And I picked Goldberg, and I think it's, again, Goldberg for me hit at that time where he was just such a megastar. It was every little boy's, like, he was a superhero out there, just beating giants and Hulk Hogan and the NWO and Freak. Like, when his streak got broke, I cried at, watching the Halloween Havoc because it affected me so much as a little child. I had all the toys. I had the plushie. Everything about Goldberg was perfect timing for my age, and I still love Goldberg. He's one of the best athletes in wrestling, I think, and he's just, to me, he's cool, and his entrance is cool, and everything was cool, and there's, like, never going to be a Goldberg match I don't enjoy or a Goldberg entrance I don't enjoy.
My biggest problem with Goldberg is he hurt a lot of my favorite wrestlers, and
True.
Here's another thing about Goldberg is he really did not last long. And the true fact of the matter is, if Goldberg doesn't have the run he has now with the E and his 2 Universal Championship runs, and I mean, I would say he had the highest of highs, but that's about it. And Triple H made damn sure that he was never going to get that high again. So I love what Goldberg was.
The difference is he actually beat Triple H.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you know, he looked just like Austin enough for Vince to love him. But you know what? Here's the thing too, though, is when in 1997 I was 7 years old when Sting was Crow. Goldberg was huge in 1998, 1999. That's how old you would have been around those ages. So it makes sense why he hit the way he did. But that's a really strong list. So
what helps him too would be his acting also. That, like, he was in so many little movies and TV shows that he was always in our TVs, like right in front of us growing up.
Yeah, definitely much more of a marketable star than Sting was. I mean, you know, Sting definitely was mainstream, but not to the same level that Goldberg was.
Still on our TV.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I'll address it right here, and I think a lot of people are surprised. This one was the hardest for me because I purposefully let off Bret Hart in this list. And I don't know if he's going to make it on your list, but to me, so the reason why Bret Hart's not on my list, particularly for what we're doing right now, is because I wanted a WCW guy on there. And if we're going to really compare WWF superstars from the new generation to the golden era, to the attitude era, so on and so forth, Bret Hart was the least drawing one of them all. And, you know, he's much more of a personal favorite. Nobody dislikes Bret Hart, but it's really hard for a lot of people nowadays to say he's their favorite. And I'll be lying if, like, I think the Hitman is awesome. I think he made Pink and Black super dope. But long-lasting legacy, I think Sting was the more cool character, if that makes any sense.
Well, for me, what it came down to with the list was I wanted to be realistic with our favorites, and not just guys that we like, because I like Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man and Razor Ramon, but I really didn't grow up with them as much. And I think the same with Bret Hart, where by the time Bret Hart was on his way out, that's when you were a hardcore wrestling fan, and you can respect the legacy. But when you start picking my favorites growing up, it becomes a really hard list to be like, well, yeah, I like him a lot, and I went back on him, but I didn't grow up with him. And I think you're going to notice when we get to our top 3 that I'm going to come back to this.
Yeah, and I could just say it for me, Bret Hart may be what it is, long-term, not top 5, but definitely one of my main influences into getting into sports entertainment because of all the tapes that we watch. He was the main event in most of those. So for us growing up, watching the Survivor Series and those Summer Slams, Bret Hart was the main event champion guy with Diesel and Shawn and Razor. So that's how our memories with them came out. We were definitely much more Attitude Era kids than we were new generation, the new gen kids. At number 3, I have the guy that probably stole the show on a 2-night epic WrestleMania night. I have the Dead Man, the American Badass, Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. Everything I said about Sting except 20 times more. I mean, he is the coolest character to ever exist in professional wrestling, sports entertainment. It doesn't matter. The Undertaker is wrestling. He never needed to be in movies. He never needed to be in TV shows. He was so big that all he needed was to be a wrestler. The streak was phenomenal. The streak meant a lot. But you know what else meant a lot? The storylines with Mankind, with Kane, Shawn Michaels, all the gimmick matches he came around with those characters. The strong storylines that Vince puts, arguably Vince McMahon's most successful character ever created. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime generation. It's a guy that's almost 7 feet tall, that can move like a cat, that knew the business. How many other guys, other than maybe Chris Jericho, who we love here, has changed their character more and it has still kept the essence of who he is. The Undertaker probably deserves to be higher, but wasn't just for circumstance. I have at number 3.
I also have The Undertaker at number 3, which is funny because it's the only one we have the same person, honestly, and it's the exact same spot, too, so I think that's very funny what we think of The Undertaker. He's Mr. Fundamental to me. He's the Tim Duncan of wrestling, where he may never be the number 1, he may never be the flashiest, but he's so consistent, and my pick specifically is the American Badass Undertaker, because that's my personal favorite. With everything with Taker, he's the most famous wrestler that never crossed the barrier to music, to movies, to TV. Like, he's famous for being the Undertaker, and I think maybe beside Ric Flair, no one else really hit that length of, I don't need to go make movies like Austin and The Rock did and all these other guys. Me wrestling, my character alone is so legendary that even non-wrestlers like me, and then besides Flair, I think Taker's the only other guy to really achieve that. Because everyone knows who Taker is. He's everywhere.
Favorite Undertaker match, and tell me why American Badass is your favorite Undertaker.
To me, the Badass was just so much fun, and it was more realistic. And again, maybe hit at the right age. Loved all the biker stuff. Always been a fan of everything like that. And it's just interesting to see one of your favorite characters change to more of a, I'm going to be a rough, tough guy. And I think that's what we needed at the time. I like him with Kane. Anything with the Brothers of Destruction was my favorite. My favorite match probably was Taker, Triple H, Hell in a Cell with Shawn refereeing.
Shawn, Triple H, and Undertaker inside that Hell in a Cell definitely was, and what ended up being a really big night with a lot of bangers in that night, definitely had a special aura to it. All right, I'll say it. My favorite Undertaker match, King of the Ring versus Mankind. I mean, Hell in a Cell 2 is... It's a great match, and it holds up to this day. More than anything, besides the 2 biggest bumps we've ever seen in wrestling, right? It holds up. And when you find out that he had a broken leg, and, you know, Mankind was all kinds of messed up, I think that definitely ranks up there as one of my all-time favorite Undertaker matches.
No, yeah, I agree. He still has it. I mean, that Boneyard match is going to be something we talk about in 10 years from now. Undertaker took what I believe Matt Hardy couldn't necessarily cross that peak. Like, he peaked, but I think there was a next level to it that I think now you have Sports Illustrated talking about it. Now you have ESPN talking about it. He did something that Lucha Underground couldn't do. He made a movie in wrestling, and he almost created a new genre in one night of, like, this is what we can do also. And it's going to get just as much hits, if not more. And I think that's, like, yeah, he may have had the inspiration from those, but he did what Taker does, and he just elevated beyond our wildest dreams, I think.
And he made Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, who was a made man before, he made him one of the most, who already was one of the most believable, but put him on another level that now Brock is making people to a point where Brock can never have done it the same way that he is now, and that's the power. AJ Styles, who was mainstream in the wrestling community, has now become mainstream because of working a program with The Undertaker.
Well, yeah, and you got to think before Brock was jobbing out, so not jobbing out, but he was losing to Cena and Triple H, and he was losing a lot. After Taker, he went on that rampage of, like, damn, like, Brock's only going to lose to, like, 3 people, and who those 3 people have been, basically? Not even Braun Strowman, so Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre in the last legit 4 or 3 years that he's lost to, and Roman Reigns.
And as I said about Sting, he's not only has all these accolades, right? He also owns being part of one of the most must-watch, most wanted dream matches between him and Sting. And that's the interesting thing, too, is, like, even with all the comparisons, there's been so many demonic characters and so many satanic characters before and after The Undertaker, and everybody gets compared to him. Who else is like that? Like, who else is the you're the next Taker? Nobody ever says you're the next Austin or you're the next Rock. But people always try to find the next Taker. Who's Vince's next character? Bray Wyatt is a great example, but it's like Bray Wyatt's doing a great job of being his own thing. And he's done a great job of being able to transform a little bit over time. But think about how pretty cool that is. All the big men, you don't hear he's the next Diesel, or he's the next Kane. It's, is he the next Taker?
You were hearing that about Luke Harper, and that's why it was such a waste, because that was the early word on Luke Harper was, this will be your next Taker, and they just never delivered on that.
So obviously here on Quarantine Files, on the Good Brothers, we are huge Undertaker fans, just like everybody else in the universe. So at number 3, the Good Brother and I both have the dead man, the American badass, The Undertaker. At number 2, good brother, I have the beer-drinking, middle-finger-raising, rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. We weren't supposed to like him. He was bad for us. He was the South Park of wrestling. He was making us throw up the middle finger. He was chugging beer. He was hitting authority. He was the coolest character ever. He was the coolest man ever. And he has the best finisher of all time. He has the best pop of all time. He has maybe the biggest WrestleMania moment of all time at WrestleMania 13. There has not been a bigger superstar since Stone Cold Steve Austin. And we're talking about since John Cena, Triple H, Batista, The Undertaker, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, name them. Nobody has been able to become Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I love Stone Cold, and Stone Cold, I'll be honest, he didn't make my list for the pure fact of I wanted to pick guys that had a real personal thing to me. And Stone Cold is such obvious. He's the number one, obviously, of all-time wrestler, I believe. I think if you don't think so, you're not thinking it logically as a wrestler. My number 2 is Triple H, since we mentioned it. And I think the difference is, with me and Triple H is, I liked him in DX. I liked him in Evolution. I liked him as the Authority. He was the first undisputed champion when I was getting into WrestleMania's hardcore. He won so many Royal Rumbles. He was always winning titles. He could play the face. He could play the heel. He was this larger-than-life Viking-looking man. And, again, he was almost like that version of a superhero. And I think you're getting the gist of my picks are very superhero men friendly, where I like these larger-than-life characters. And I just think he was so... he is a wrestler. He is a prototype of what a wrestler is. And it's everything I enjoyed in those early years when it came to the Rock, Austin, and Triple H era. That was the Attitude Era. Triple H, for some reason, just, you know me, it just, he was always my guy. And to this day, he still is. Triple
H is a badass. Triple H also, arguably, is the greatest heel of the last 20 years. I think it's easy to say where everybody wants to be the number one, right? Everybody wants to be the A side of it. Triple H is the best B side, the best other guy in the history of the business. He is the perfect guy to get somebody over. He did a lot of times where he didn't get the guy over, and he didn't want to be part of the reason why he made other stars. But Triple H, if you were able to get over on him, and if you were able to stay on the same footing as him, you were a made man. He's the bar when it comes to the WWE whenever he was the main guy. And it's a really strong point. I don't think anything he did in the ring made him mainstream famous like these other guys and impactful. I think he was so effective at being a dick. And for us wrestling fans, he was perfect to always want to go against in the video game. But I don't necessarily have him on my top list because he was the B-side of most things. He was never the guy.
See, for me, it was he forced himself so much to be the A-side that, when you talk about the Attitude, you talk about Taker, you talk about Triple H, Stone Cold, and The Rock, and I think Triple H was just, he was always the face. When Taker was gone, Triple H is the face. When Austin and Rock were gone, Triple H is the face. He has the best entrances. He gives away title belts. He has NXT. I think if you look at Triple H overall, he's kind of forced himself into media and pop culture. Everyone knows the Spitwater tape. Everyone knows the championship belt. People know who Triple H is for the pure fact that he's forced himself in there. And there's just a very Arnold Schwarzenegger mode to that of I'm going to force my success no matter what. Whereas everyone else on this list, I think, yeah, they worked hard for it and they were in the right spot and it just escalated. He forced it. Everything he did was just in your face, in your face, in your face. And then the DX tank and then Evolution and the helicopters. And everything he did was just so over the top. Look at his entrances that it works for me. And I enjoy it so much.
Nobody on this list has had more of an impact on the future of wrestling than Triple H, and nobody can ever take that away from him. His fingerprints are going to be all over the next 20 years of professional wrestling, and he may never have to go inside a ring ever again. That's how influential he is, so he definitely deserves to be on top of your list, good brother. All right, well, then that means we have got down to our number one picks. Good brother, let's remind the folks of where we're at right now. At number 5, I had CM Punk. The good brother had
Daniel Bryan.
At number 4, I have the Icon, Sting. the Good Brother had
Goldberg.
at number 3, the American Badass, the Dead Man, the Undertaker, takes the spot for the Good Brother and I in the top wrestler list at number 3. At number 2, I had Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Good Brother had
Paul Levesque, Triple H himself, the Game.
And at number 1, I have the pie-eating, eyebrow-raising, most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment, The Rock. There's nobody who's done what he's done. Nobody. Not even Hulk Hogan. Not Andre the Giant.
I don't want that. I want you to tell me why you personally love The Rock. Because we all love The Rock, and we all know he's one of the best. Why is The Rock one of your personal favorites, Mike?
I put this down in a post a long time ago, years ago. He was my wrestling Michael Jordan. When I grew up watching The Rock, he never lost. He was always the cool one. It was never like John Cena, though. He made it look cool. You wanted to talk like him. You wanted to walk like him. He made outfits look cool. He made wearing tracksuits look cool. He went down in the ring. It's exactly how you wanted to walk into a sports field when you were playing basketball or you're playing football. You wanted to be The Rock. He was the Deion Sanders of professional wrestling. And for somebody like us, who we love sports, we're competitive, there's something about the swagger that he had. And Stone Cold had it. But there was something much more urban about The Rock. And obviously being from Chicago at that age, that's who I gravitated towards. And during the Monday Night Wars, there was nobody like The Rock. Nobody like that on TNT, and nobody else like that on USA. Sting was a huge star. Hogan was a huge star. Nobody was like The Rock even then. And then comes out The Scorpion King, and then comes out The Rundown, and all these other movies that Walking Tall. And I'm a middle schooler when these come out. And these are now impacting me. So when he does come back to wrestling, I'm so much more of a fan because I love his movies, and I love him as a professional wrestler. He's my Hulk Hogan. He's The Rock at number 1.
The Rock didn't make my list for one reason, is The Rock's always been my least favorite of those Attitude wrestlers. So if I named those 4 guys, he would be number 4. I love The Rock as a personality and as an actor more than I ever did as a wrestler.
WrestleMania 17, one of my favorite shows. I've said it years before we had a podcast network. To me, WrestleMania 17 and WrestleMania 30 are the 2 greatest WrestleManias of all time. I could rewatch either one of those. And you talk about Sting and Hogan being maybe the best story ever told at its time. I save that for this. There is no story better than WrestleMania 17 in Houston, Texas. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. The lead up to that, My Way by Limp Bizkit. The greatest package ever produced by WWE, even to this day. It's the importance of who The Rock and Stone Cold were, and that's why they're number 2 and number 1 on my list. So with that in mind, who did you have at number 1?
I think it's pretty obvious who my number 1 is. Maybe to you, I don't think maybe to everyone listening, because my number 1 is John Cena, and I think the reason John Cena, a lot of the similar things to you, his rise, from his rise when he was just a cool, young up-and-comer, to then becoming the rapper gimmick, then becoming kind of Super Cena, where he went as Michael Jordan didn't lose, and his feud with Randy Orton, his feud with Edge, then his feud with Punk, his feud with Bryan. I think John Cena is just the best version of a modern wrestler that we have. I think he's everything that his character stood for hit me at a right age every single time he changed it over. In college, I did the 3 thing like he did when we went for 6 championships for 3 for each finger. I loved the whole hustle, loyalty, respect thing at that age in college because I thought it spoke to me at that age. And I think at this age now, I can look back and be like, he's evolved with me as I've grown up. I've seen his career go on, and then seeing what he did last night is almost like, yeah, like John Cena is one of my personal favorites and, close personal friend on Twitter, obviously. But I think there's just something about it that sticks with me, and it's almost undescribable. But everything John Cena has done or ever done, I've always been a fan of.
So, just point of order that Becky Lynch and John Cena are friends of the show. I think John Cena earns that spot. And more than anything, think about this. If you're always, like you and I talked about it when we were making our predictions for WrestleMania 36, Vince McMahon doesn't let certain people either take L's or take L's by certain people. The Rock and John Cena just don't give out jobs. And guess who did a job to each other? And that's The Rock and John Cena. That's how high Vince McMahon sees both of these guys, that he would put the other guy over on the other one. So I think that's it.
To me, if you put a Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, I think the best way to do it is by genre. So then you look back and you take let's say your Hulk Hogan, obviously. And then you got to go forward, and I think you put your Rock Austin there. And then I think to not put John Cena right there, he's almost created modern wrestling. Like, he's the reason WWE's still around. Like, when he's the literal last face of the company, because after Cena, you can't really put your hand on someone that they pushed as much, that was the face of everything, that just escalated to that level of The Rock and Stone Cold, and I think John Cena was the last of that. So I think to not put him up there is almost just modern bias.
It's a really good point that there might never be a guy or a woman that was like John Cena in that standpoint, where they're that over, that they're undoubtedly the number one guy. I think if just last year we would have said undoubtedly Becky was the guy, that was the number one. Now she's definitely the top 5, the top 3 sometimes, but it's a shared throne. It's not a single seat. It's a council. It's a group of people are the ones who are over, opposed to John Cena was always the number one guy. That was it. There was nobody who was ever going to take his spot. And you know what? You can say the same thing about Austin and The Rock, that they were undoubtedly 1-1. That's the rare time, though. I think that's sometimes what wrestling fans forget is Rock and Austin being ones at the same time. That doesn't happen all the time. That's a rarity. I mean, we got very close to Orton and Cena, but like
Cena, Batista.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think we were anywhere near in the same level as Rock and Austin, who are undoubtedly, they would be ones in any era of any generation.
No, I agree. And I just want to say, there was only one person that was really close to making the list, and I couldn't put him on necessarily because, again, a lot of the old school bias of I was only around style for about 2 years, and it was Eddie Guerrero. But he was such a big part of our childhood, especially being a Latin wrestler and winning the championship, beating Brock, and that whole run he had. And he was just so much fun. But at the end of the day, like, as much as I love Eddie Guerrero and that whole, again, like, I think what you and Sting, where I love that promo and I love that era, I did miss a lot of his old stuff until I was older. So I couldn't necessarily put it there, but he was definitely my 5A. You know, like, he was right there on the list.
Between you and I'm going to just start naming out names, and you and I will be like, damn, yeah. Edge, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, like right there alone. Randy Orton its own.
Macho Man.
Ric Flair. I mean, and like that's the thing. We saw a lot of Ric Flair, though. Like, and that's the thing. We saw, as Hogan, not so much, because Hogan, by the end of it, was already, you know, like, I would say WrestleMania 18 was the very end of, like, the awesomeness of it. You and I saw Ric Flair go up until WrestleMania with Shawn Michaels. So, like, we saw a lot of Ric Flair comparative to a lot of older guys. Mankind not being on a list like this. And the Outsiders, like, D-Generation X as a group.
Well, a special announcement, we are going to do a separate list of tag teams and factions. So you might see a few of those on there.
Oh, and you know, when it comes to tag teams and good old-fashioned warfare, the Good Brother and I have our list and are ready to rock and roll, so I'm excited about that. But Good Brother, what a hell of a list. What a fun time. I know it's been a crazy few days for wrestling fans, and we're all a little punch drunk between the quarantine and all the wrestling and all the news coming in between. But why don't we give a rundown for the fans and see how we got here for the Quarantine Files on the Good Brothers top 5 wrestlers. At number 5, I had CM Punk. The Good Brother had
Daniel Bryan.
At number 4, I had Sting. The Good Brother had
Goldberg.
At number 3, the Good Brother and I both had The Undertaker. At number 2, I had Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Good Brother had
Triple H.
And at number 1, I had The Rock. The Good Brother had
Dr. of Thugonomics, John Cena.
Great list. Honestly, a great list. And there is a commonality between most of them. And that was, at one point or the other, they were the most over thing in professional wrestling. And not just in a gimmicky way, but they got to a certain level and they stood there and they never went down a tier. You know, like none of these guys ever went back down. They always stood as soon as they got to the top, they never went back down. And I think that's...
They're all legends and Hall of Famers. But now let me ask you this. I want you to pick one modern guy right now that you think would make your list in 5 more years. 5 years.
That's a great question. In a roster full of Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, I think it's phenomenal. I'm going to go with Adam Cole. I think Adam Cole has all of it. I think if Vince gets creative and books him around the right people, there's nobody who will work a mic better and work a match up better with certain guys than Adam Cole. Can you imagine Drew McIntyre versus Adam Cole in the Undisputed Era? I think there's certain magic that Adam Cole has that other guys don't. And Drew McIntyre is right there because he has it all, and it looks like he's about to hit this streak that not a lot of people get. And then obviously the one that, I don't know if he would be considered this era, but like Brock Lesnar. But I guess that was, yeah, you know.
So you Adam Cole would be your pick.
I would say of like wrestlers and stuff like that, I would go Adam Cole.
Lesnar's a legend.
Okay, yeah, so then I would go Adam Cole, baby. How about you?
Keith Lee. Personally, I think he will be your first Black World Heavyweight Champion. He is my hot young-comer favorite, honestly. I love everything he does. The way he talks, his style, everything about Keith Lee is perfect for me, and I love him. And you've been telling me to get into Keith Lee forever, and then when he was in NXT, I finally really got to enjoy him. Yeah, so I would say Keith Lee would be that for me.
And 2 quick updates and or corrections, good brother. One, Goldberg lost a streak at Starrcade, not Halloween Havoc. Halloween Havoc is our favorite pay-per-view. And Keith Lee would be the second Black World Heavyweight Champion before the legend himself, Kofi Kingston, won at WrestleMania 35.
Yeah, but he's technically African. I mean, he's an American black wrestler. We're talking about, like, you know, Ron Simmons style. That's the way I look at it.
What Booker T? I guess Booker T never won the WWE Championship, right? They only
WWE Champion, and yeah, Kofi is. But again, Kofi technically wasn't born here, so I think that's where I'm getting a difference of like an American-made,
a Texas boy
heavyweight champion. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, Keith Lee being a big old Texas boy
technically doesn't count because he's mixed also.
The Rock's always the most interesting one because, like, yeah, he's black, but then like they always make him claim Samoan much more. And it's like we never let the Rock. Yeah, we never let the Rock though tell us like what he wants to claim. They always make him claim Samoan. It's like, okay, like wrestling's so weird like that. But you know what wasn't weird, good brother, was doing this list. It was a lot of fun. And you and I have been talking a lot of wrestling the last few days here on the Mercado Airwaves Network, here on the Quarantine Files. We did a special Sports from the Couch where we predicted WrestleMania 36, where the good brother won this year's prediction special, so congratulations to you on that. And now we got to do a top 5 wrestlers of all time. You got some other great lists for us to go through the rest of this week as we celebrate professional wrestling for doing us as a community, as people who are just looking for any type of content, for giving us 2 nights of wrestling, a lot of entertainment, a lot of joy, and if nothing else, a lot of engagement. They made us forget about a lot of things the last few nights, so I had a lot of fun doing this list, good brother.
I did too. Right now around WrestleMania season, you catch that wrestling eye, and for us, we like to enjoy it as much as we can before it slows down again.
So if you enjoyed this wrestling talk, make sure you guys stay around the network. We did a prediction special. See how we did on the WrestleMania 36 prediction and discussion show with the good brother himself, Alex Mercado, as a guest on Sports from the Couch. We are also going to be doing a review of WrestleMania 36, so make sure you guys stay around the network for that. And, of course, the Quarantine Files is going to be giving you a bunch of great wrestling lists, including this one. Let us know, who do you have as your top 5 wrestlers of all time? The Good Brothers on Twitter at Mercado2 and Alex, and on Instagram at Mercado2121. I promise you the adult content is only on the iCam that he has set up on Patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves, and like, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. We have a bunch of cool interviews with athletes and celebrities. Speaking of wrestling, friend of the show, Becky Lynch, joined the show, so make sure you guys check that out. And the other great content we have in the archives. A huge thank you to all of you who have been subscribed to us on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Right now, we are playing Doom Eternal, so you can check out our playthroughs right there. And we have Resident Evil 3 down the pipeline, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Good brother, take care. We'll see you on the next episode of the Quarantine Files.
Adios.
For everybody here at Mercado Airwaves, thank you so much. Be safe. We'll see you here on the Good Brothers on the Mercado Airwaves
Network.
Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and more, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on youtube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network, and of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast to like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network.